I'm Kathleen Walker, New England Endurance Events. Also within your view is Andy Shirting. He is also a race director of New England Endurance Events. And then we have our distinguished panel from the Boston Tri Club. I'll say their names. They're going to have an opportunity to tell you a little bit about themselves in a little bit. So we have Jen Scalise, Michelle Lensing, and then Sean Ludigens that are all from the Boston Tri team. So they're going to be able to kind of tell you different things that have helped them over the years. And so we'll have questions. This is really hard to do without everybody having their videos on. So I hope more of you show your smiling faces. We're going to start off just to give you an idea of how this will run. Tonight, we're going to start off with this introduction right here. I'll tell you a little bit about the New England Endurance Events races since we are sponsoring this. We'll do a panel introduction, so you'll get to hear more from the Boston Tri Club. Do a little brief thing about basic triathlon format. Some people are confused about exactly how all that works. And then we'll start in some panel questions. We have just a few questions for our panel, questions that come up all the time. And then we'll open that up to Q and A. So if you have a question that, burning question you've got to ask, throw it in chat. We'll go through that after we do our panel questions. Andy will be nice enough. Andy, I'm telling you, asking you now to do it. If Andy will go through those chats and pull out the ones that we've already answered those questions, and then just stick to the ones that that haven't been answered. So don't worry, we will get to your questions as we get through. Sometimes you'll ask something and a little bit later somebody will answer that for you. So we appreciate you guys all being on. And if I can start off with the New England Endurance Events. Of course, we are a race company in mostly on the Cape Cod. We have 6 races on Cape, starting with the Hyannis one. And actually, I'm going to share my screen. So just warn you before I take over your thing. Always easier to see it while you're hearing it. And this is really important to us. So Hyannis one is our first race, June 8th. That is over in Craigville. Wellfleet Sprint is June 15th. That race is sold out, although there'll be a few charity spots that open up. Falmouth Sprint's July 14th, down Surf Drive Beach in Falmouth. Hyannis 2, September 7th. That is also in the same location. I said Craigville. It's Craigville Beach, which is Centerville, which is other people call it Hyannis. So in that area. And then there's Swim Run Cape Cod. Not for someone who's brand new to swimming and biking, but some people are great with swimming and biking, and now we're adding in swimming and running, and now they're adding in the biking. So it might be something that that would work for you. So that's there. The Gut Check Adventure Triathlon it's an adventure. It's all mixed up. You might run several times, you might swim a few times, you could even paddleboard, you might bike. So that one's all mixed up and is good for everybody. So I'm gonna unshare my screen because that's all you need to see there. So a quick rundown of New England Endurance events. And now let's just jump right into into our panel introductions. If I can start with Jen. So Jen's going to tell you a little about herself, but I'm going to start off with that. Jen's been in triathlon for 31 years, and Falmouth was her very first race. Thank you, Jen. She's done 19 Ironmans, and then many halves and everything else. She's qualified for Kona 9 times. She's a swim coach for kids teams all the way up to masters, and a triathlon coach for the last 15 years. If you want to say hi, Jen, and then there you go. That was easy. And then we have,
I didn't know if you wanted me to unmute and say hi.
yeah. So there we go. And then we have Michelle Lensing. She started in triathlons in high school, which is really great because you're not old, Michelle, but still it's like starting triathlon in high school. Like there's not a lot of high schoolers doing that. So good for you. She joined the Northeastern Club Triathlon team. She's been doing this for 10 years, sprints all the way to Ironman, and she's an age grouper. Michelle, if you want to say hi, people will see who you are.
Hi, everyone.
Easy enough. And then Sean. Sean is I think it might be 1988 was Sean's first race. So we're not going to say he's old. He just started really young. He is like probably many of you, you're trying to work in triathlon with family, and sometimes that's easier than others. And so, as Sean has told me, his triathlon career has kind of ebbed and flowed just depending on the family flow. And that's completely normal and totally acceptable for any of you that you might be thinking the same thing, like, oh, I don't have time for this. You do. Sean has also done from sprints all the way up to Ironman, as well as extreme Ironman, ultras, mountaineering. He's done it all. So Sean, if you could say hi and then tell us a little bit about Boston Triathlon Team.
Thanks. Hello. So BTT, or Boston Tri Team's been around since the late 90s, 99, spawned out of a cycling club, a cycling shops triathlon team. It's a really cool mix, actually, of people who are experienced, not experienced, fast, slow, in the middle, been doing it a long time, been doing it a short time. So it's really a mix of people. And when you're looking for people who, kind of fit the vibe of the team, it's a mix of social and training and racing. So we have socials every month, for example, things like that. So it's not really, it's a giant mix. And the goal of that has generally been out over time to watch people grow. While I have to make sure I call her Jen Scalise and not by her maiden name because she's been around so long. The story I like to tell actually was Jen, while she has this resume, when she first started triathlon, was an amazing swimmer. And it was really just a matter of how fast we would find her on the bike. And now generally the only place I find her is after the race. So just over time, she's gotten faster and faster. And so that really embodies how the team has been. She fit the mold of the team, and then people just kind of jive on over time.
Oh, great. Oh, thanks, Sean. Yeah, the Boston Tri Club, Andy and I were at the last social, which was a lot of fun. And the team is just fun. It's full of a bunch of really nice people that are really welcoming, and just a whole mix of life. So different stages of triathlon, different stages of life. So they're a great team. So we appreciate you guys doing this with us. All right, basic triathlon format. So we have our typical. So I did have a question the other day that came in via email that kind of asked what we did after the swim. So I'm going to give you like really basic, and ignore it if you already know that. But a triathlon is a swim, bike, run, typically. You can have a aqua bike that is a swim bike. You can have a duathlon, which is a run, bike, run. Then we've got aquathon, usually just a swim run, but it could be a run, swim, run, either way. But New England Endurance Events has all of those in the Hyannis 1 and the Hyannis 2. And then we have our distances. We have sprint. And I'm going to ask Jen, Michelle, or Sean, one of you guys, to jump in and kind of explain what those distances mean, like as far as like it's usually between this and that. So you have got sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, Ironman, and then you've got all sorts of other triathlons that aren't really triathlons, but they encompass some parts of the sport. So do one of you guys want to jump into what do you consider a sprint as far as distances?
I'll let the coach go. Actually, you're gonna have Jen. She's an official coach, so I'll let her cover this one.
All right. So a sprint usually is somewhere between like a quarter mile, even up to a half mile swim. I generally like the half mile swim ones, but the quarter miles are good for people who just want to get a little taste of the swim in there, but it can be anywhere between those. And then usually like around a 9 to like a 12, maybe 15-mile bike. And then usually a 5K. That's usually a sprint. And Olympic is a nice distance too. It's like a 0.9-mile swim, sometime anywhere, but I've seen between a 22 and like a 26-mile bike, and then usually a 10K. And then half Ironman is half an Ironman, which is 1.2-mile swim, 56, and then a half marathon. and then you have your full Ironman.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Something else to note as far as swim, I was hearing like Jen was saying, and you swim, this much. And I can see some people going, what? 1.2 mile swim? And swims could happen in a pool. We don't have any pool swims for New England endurance events. Actually, I'm not completely sure if there are any in New England. There might be one somewhere around, but I'm not sure. So usually it's either pond, lake, open, we consider more open water, like ocean, which might be like the sound, like the Hyannis Triathlon is in a sound. It's not really ocean, but it feels like ocean when you're in it. It's salt water. There's a little bit of waves, things like that. But those tend to be your choices. Of course, you can have hills, no hills. All right. So did panel before we go on to some questions that we have for you, is there anything else that you want to make sure that everybody knows just about the basic like triathlon, like just laying it out? Here's the distances. Here's kind of what to expect from each of those distances. Great.
No, I'm the opposite of Jen though. I want shower, bike, run. She wants a really long swim. So one of the cool things is, you get to do all three. That's there. So you can kind of pick your poison.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I love that. Everyone's always got their own thing about, what they either really like or really don't. All right. So speaking of swim, one of the questions that I get a lot, and they're not always from new athletes. I mean, it could be from anyone who maybe hasn't raced with, on a certain one of our races. The, wetsuit or not a wetsuit. Now, sometimes that depends on the water temperature, right? But it also depends on some other factors. So, Michelle, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think everyone kind of has their own opinion on whether they want to wear a wetsuit or not. I'd say the longer the race you're doing, the more helpful it is for like buoyancy, and it'll just help you swim faster. It kind of makes more of a difference the longer you're in the water. But if you're doing something shorter, like a sprint, totally up to you whether you want to wear a wetsuit or not. I'd say like if the water is going to be colder, and especially if you don't really like cold water, you get cold easily, then sometimes a wetsuit's nice just to keep you warm, and helps you glide through the water and be buoyant too, which is nice. But if you don't mind cold water, or the water is going to be on the warmer side, maybe the sprint's only a quarter mile swim on the shorter side. I'd say like you can definitely go without a wetsuit if you don't want to, or if you don't have one, especially. Don't feel like you need to buy one for your first triathlon. A lot of people do them without. But make sure if you do choose to race with a wetsuit, you need to practice in it before you race, just to feel what it's like to race. And you don't want to be trying it out at the race.
I love that. The Jen or Sean, do you have anything to add to that with wetsuits?
Exactly what you said. I would definitely just also agree with like, try it. Don't just borrow one from someone and never try it and then try to swim in it on race day. Like, give it a try. If you have one, I would say, I would say always wear it until you can't. But if you don't have one, also don't worry about it for a sprint. You'll be fine. I don't think the water's that cold on the Cape in those months. But what I would say is, I think at all your races, you allow a warm up, correct?
We do, but before the race actually starts, and we have the Olympics go first. So once the race starts, we can't have anyone in the water because there is nowhere else to be except for kind of in that space where lifeguards are trying to watch the athletes, and they can't watch other people in the water as well. So you have to warm up early.
I think it's good to make sure you get there and just get the nerves out and warm up even a little bit. Even if it's before if you get there and you have to do it before your wave starts, like far before, like you said. But I think the important thing is to get in and just get in the water, and don't just have it shock your system.
What do you need?
The only thing I'd add to that is I'm the dude that anything over 200 meters, I'm wearing a wetsuit. So I prefer the wetsuit that you're going. What they said about wearing it before, even if you have a wetsuit's like a sponge. And so it dries out over the winter. So if you're doing your first event for the year, or you're borrowing someone's wetsuit, or even if you haven't used it in a week or so, get it wet let it dry out. And then that's another reason where Jen said, go do the warm up. It actually soaks up the water and expands so that when you jump into the water to start the race, it doesn't suck up on you and you get that tight feeling around your chest. So there's multiple reasons to do a warm up besides the other reasons. It actually helps the wetsuit kind of get moisture and get loose for you. Then you can let the air in. And then the last thing I'd add is just I spray a little water down right before the race, because when you get in, you don't want it dry and you don't want to have to stop it, not stop, or in the middle of the start, reach down and try to get water down in the wetsuit.
I like that. If I can add one other thing people should know, that is all like exactly what I tell everyone in the start of every race. So so I love that. So all of you listening, like take notes. The one thing to be aware of is that all of our races are USAT sanctioned, which means wetsuits are illegal after 78 degrees, when the water is 78 degrees or more. Then wetsuits are not, I should take that back. Wetsuits are they're not illegal just yet. But they are there's a term for it. Jen, I bet you've got it on the tip of your tongue.
You mean over 80?
Over
No, you're talking about the in-between range, not available for awards
There we
range?
are.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so sorry, like my brain just went out. There's a term for it though. So it's 78 degrees. They're not, you technically cannot wear a wetsuit and get awards. There we go. And then it's 82. They're illegal. I think it's 82.
Yes.
Our races
Yeah.
have never gotten that cold. I mean, that warm. So we've never had to worry about 82. But yeah, so 78, you can't receive an award if you're wearing a wetsuit. So it is rare that any of our races get that warm, but you should be aware that there is a kind of a limit, because you'll overheat. Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. All right, so the next question that kind of goes like right into this, from wetsuits to, well, where do I change my clothes? So that's a big question that I get. And so there's ways that that we handle that as triathletes. Like, depends on what you're wearing, that you can wear through the race. So Jen, do you want to start with that? What kind of clothing would you wear on race day? And maybe
Yes.
it first.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good tri suits out there for you to, try and see what fit you like, especially I started a long time ago when we actually wore Speedos for the whole thing, but so now you can, but they have a lot of women's companies too that fit women better than just men tri suits on women. So there's a couple of really good companies that do that. But I would say to test out, different, whether you want to wear a one piece or top and shorts, but try that also out before race day, even if you feel like, wow, I feel really weird, like running down my street in that outfit, but I would try out everything before race day, because you don't want that to be something that bothers you on race day. And then you can just wear that the whole time. You don't have to worry about changing anything.
Great. Is there anyone else that wants to add to what Jen said?
No, I mean, I know for guys, just aside, so that, they do have the full suit, but they make so the triathlon shorts are basically like a swimsuit material, but they have a really thin pad in them. So it's like a mini bike pad. But you can, I mean, if you wear compression shorts as your first triathlon, I want to try it, a sprint in particular, you can get away without one. You might not thank yourself the next day 100%, but you can definitely get it done and have some compression shorts, and then, slide some shorts on after that or something like that. The one thing I would caution against is running in regular bike shorts. I've seen people try to do that. That is not only uncomfortable, but you will really hate yourself about halfway through a 5K if you're doing that. So I would, as Jen said, just explore how which of those you need. And then the shorts, I don't know how to put this, super PC. That's where I would say you'd spend money. If you start to look at things, getting a really good pair of tri shorts, you will thank yourself on many levels. Everything else, you can kind of wear different shirts and other stuff, but your shorts become very important in triathlon.
Yes, for sure. Michelle, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think they covered most of it.
If I can add one point, sometimes I see people at races and they're wearing, like, they're getting ready for the swim. They're not wearing a wetsuit. They're wearing their what they expect to wear throughout the triathlon, but they have a really baggy shirt on. So that's gonna, when you're in the water, or they have the race bib, they have it pinned to their shirt that they're going to swim in. And so when you're swimming, you've got like, you know, if you have something that's loose on your top and then you're swimming, it just kind of balloons around you. So that might not be great. Try it beforehand when in, you know, in training. Always try things before. And then if you're gonna wear your bib, then you're gonna probably want something else to go over that or something in your swim. Jen, do you have any
Well,
suggestions?
I was going to say, you know what I love for the numbers, even if it's your first triathlon, I think you can get it really inexpensive as a race number belt. So that when you get to after the swim I don't think you have to wear your number on your bike either. So you can just snap it on. It's like a little belt and it has like your bib number is right on it. And you just quickly like snap it on and go for your run so that it's not flapping on your bike and you're not swimming in it. And even if, like I said, if it's your first triathlon, I don't think they're expensive at all. So you might even be able to get one free somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great point, Jen. The race belts are super easy. One of the questions that came up, we went back just for a second with the wetsuits. Paulo was asking about like a tri-slide or something like that. Like, what would you use to try to help you get your wetsuit off? Do you guys have any like tricks of the trade?
I put Body Glide around my wrists and my ankles, like a lot of it. And I just literally rip it off and like step on it and rip it off as fast as I can. But I don't know if you guys do the Pam thing or anything. I don't.
Yeah, some people use a cooking oil spray.
Yeah.
Someone did comment Vaseline or petroleum. Some of that stuff can actually degrade a wetsuit. But they're really durable if they're not torn already, and it's really either rocks or something sharp that'll tear them. You can really step on the end of them and pull them off. Once they're wet, that's fine. It's the getting them on. Some people also use trash bags. You'll see, you know, or plastic bags, which I know are now illegal in Massachusetts, but you know, to have the store. But if you get a couple of those actually work too. You just step through.
Yeah, and I'd say definitely just like practice taking it off fast, like after a swim, because it seems really hard at first, but after you get it wet and go for a swim and then get out and practice just kind of ripping it off quick, you'll get used to kind of how it works.
So speaking, sorry, now we've gone back and you guys get y'all confused. We went back to wetsuits, but I do have a question for you guys. So I have the same issue that Paulo was having, you know, the idea like trying to get your wetsuit off, particularly with sleeves. I've got a sleeved wetsuit and it's just impossible. I mean, I've been stuck like, you know, with my arms half in the darn thing. So I just went to a sleeveless. Do you all have any suggestions or any preference to sleeveless versus sleeved if it's not a water temperature issue? If it's just like you have to buy a wetsuit, you know, if you can only buy one wetsuit, what should you buy?
If you have the money, and I would buy sleeved. I think that's the fastest one. I think just practice getting out of it. And like, I put Body Glide around my, wrists and like, just rip it off. Same way I rip it off my legs, but I also, not that you have to do this, especially if it's your first race, but I start ripping it off when I get out of the water and I'm going to transition. I start to get it off like while I'm going, but it's not something like a first timer needs to worry about, but, it's just something you're doing while you're going. So, but I can get it off. It's sometimes over the watch, it's a little bit harder, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say the long sleeve gets you a longer season. And so the difference between when I find it too warm or anything is not that long. I also tend to take it off right away. But, you know, one of the things you can look at is how far is it to transition. The drier your suit gets, it starts to get air and it creates a vacuum. So the longer you keep it on after you get out of the water, because a wetsuit literally is meant to be wet inside. So the longer you run with it on, the worse it's going to be to take it off. You have to take it off before you bike. I mean, I'm sure one of us has a story about people who haven't, but you have to stop and take it off. So it's definitely worth, you know, taking the top off and then running with the bottoms. The bottoms will come off a lot easier, but you're going to have to stop at your transition area anyway. So you might as well stop as soon as you get out of the water, get it off, and then just run without having it around your chest. And it'll be a lot easier to get off.
Great. That's great advice. So when we were talking, you just mentioned transition, which is a great transition into transitions. So you all have things that have worked well for you in transition. Before I ask you that actual question, I'm going to make sure that we're all on the same page with everyone that has joined us tonight with what is that transition. So the transition is usually a central transition area. For all of our races, for almost every try that I've ever done, it's always one transition area. The only time it might be different is when we do gut check. There is no transition area. You just move from one spot to the other. Or swim run, you could end up with 15 transitions, but they're not really transition areas. You're just moving from one spot to the other. So talking about general, typical triathlon, transition areas, you go from the swim to the bike. So you go from the swim, you go into transition, you get your bike, which is racked there. You swap all your stuff out, you get on your bike and you go. You come back to the same exact spot. Then you put all your bike stuff away, you get your running stuff if you're not doing an aqua bike, and then off you go on the run, and then you'll go to the finish line. So make sure that we're all clear on exactly how that transition works. So now the question is tips and tricks for triathlon or for transition. Michelle, let's start with you.
One thing I like to do is put my helmet, kind of rest it. If you have a tri bike with aero bars, it's really easy to rest your helmet upside down on those. And then you can even put your sunglasses in it. And it just makes it easy when you get to it, you put your sunglasses right on and then flip your helmet over. If you don't have aero bars, sometimes you can rest it kind of on the side of the handles, or I've seen some people kind of string the strap over the side. But otherwise, just set it face up, kind of on the ground in front of your bike. Again, you can put your sunglasses out kind of in it like that, and helps just kind of have everything ready to go. Like think about how you're going to put it on. So those things ready to go. If you wear socks on the bike, you can have your socks kind of like opened and ready to go, either on your shoes, or if your shoes are on your bike, you can just have your socks set there. Things like that.
Great. Sean, do you want to tell us your tricks?
Yeah, so it may look a little weird, but basically I put my bike stuff on when I get there, and then I take the bike stuff off and I put it in reverse order so that I know it's in reverse order. It's the way I want it, etc. For the run, I actually leave hat, sunglasses, race belt, all that stuff inside my hat. So I take it on the fly. You don't have to do that, but I just, anything I can take with me on the way out. And then like Michelle said, try to get my helmet the right side out, but basically I put my bike stuff on and then I take my bike stuff off. And it also lets me, early on, we can talk about packing for your race before, because I do the same thing at home, but it kind of gives you a flag of like, is everything here? So you're just comfortable when you leave, like I got everything. You don't want to show up onto the bike and realize you're missing one sock, something like that, which can happen. So that's it. And then I take a small towel that I usually just, don't tell my wife, but I take one of the hand towels, which becomes my transition / foot towel, so that I can dry my feet, put socks on. I am a socks all the time. And that'll be like a huge topic for some people. I definitely want socks on all the time because I'm just more comfortable, but dry socks, boom, gone.
Great. Jen.
I like to, all the things you said, plus in the morning, even if I'm like nervous or people are trying to talk to me or whatever, I try to make sure I take a couple of minutes by myself and really visualize like where my stuff is in terms of like counting the racks, or is there like a porta potty near me, or is there like a pole or whatever I can find, so that, because when you come out of the swim, you're going to feel a little like kind of amped up, and you just swam and you might be running to your bike and you might not know where it is. And even though I've done like a million triathlons, I still feel the same way coming out. And so I just know like, oh, there's that pole, there's my bike. So I mentally walk through all the transitions before I start the race, just a couple of quick minutes to myself with no one talking to me. And the other thing is check out putting like some kind of laces in your shoes that are not regular shoelaces, so you don't have to tie them, and practice that too. So make sure you put in some kind of easy like tie, whatever you want to use. There's like zip tie, there's like Taiwan, there's like scrungy ones, like, I don't know, like easy laces. There's like a million brands, but just make sure you try them, and then you don't have to worry about tying your shoes either. So
It's a really good point though, Jen, about like sighting, take a walk and put yourself, even if you don't warm up the swim or the warm up's in a different area, what are you going to sight when you come in? So you can see what you're looking at when you come in, because you don't know where the sun's going to be. The other thing is, where am I going to put my wetsuit? Because you don't want to be that dude that throws their wetsuit onto someone else's stuff. And if the racks are tight, sometimes there's space at the end, or there's a place for you to put it where you can get it out of the way. Because the other thing you don't want to do is get so tight with that you drop your wetsuit onto your run stuff. And so you get back and your wetsuit is now drained onto your run stuff in a sprint. So when you come back, it's completely soaked to get started. It's just mentally, you want to start each leg fresh. Not that I would have done that before, or it could possibly happen. But that would be another one.
Great. Great. Excellent. Thank you, guys. All right. So another question that we get a lot is hydration and oh, wait, you know what? Hydration and nutrition, finish that sentence, but let me back up for a quick sec, just to New England endurance events, transition areas. And really, this is Kathleen's pet peeve and a USAT rule. Please do not bring your buckets or your dish bins, those like plastic things. Don't bring anything hard like that into transition, because either you're going to trip over it or someone else is going to trip over it. And it's just not safe. You can have a backpack, or if you have a transition bag that you've borrowed or you've purchased, that all works. That's great. And to Sean's point, you can, usually at the end of the rack, there might be a little bit of room if it's not super tight. There's always someone to be able to put your stuff, but please don't bring that big stuff into transition. It just makes it unsafe for everybody. So now that I've had that say, back to my point, hydration, nutrition. What should we be taking in depending on the distance of the race, as far as hydration and then nutritional needs as well. Who wants to start with that? Jen.
That
Wait,
is
sorry.
a
Sean, gonna start?
tricky.
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, that's such a tricky one. So if there's anything you practice, it would be that. Jen will probably follow. Like, the advantage of doing the sprints in the Olympics is that you can actually kind of go do a couple of trial runs on yourself. But I would say it starts the day before. You find out what works for you when you eat dinner, and then how that rolls into the next day and what works for you. So you've tried your race morning. I think you'll hear all three of us say nothing new on race day. So literally, I've had that breakfast 100 times. I've had this. For me, I have like a gel 15 minutes before I start. And then because it's super personal, for a sprint distance, I'm like barely drinking anything, because, you've got your red line the whole way, out to different stuff, but it's such a personal thing. And if there's anything that you're not going to try new, like, it's nutrition. Like, that should just not be a thing, especially Olympic and sprint distance. I wouldn't say there's no reason. You should be able to go out and train on each one of those, but that's like we could be here for hours on race nutrition.
Yes, thank you.
I think the important thing for a sprint, too, is just make sure you're drinking at least. Like, bring a bottle on the bike, whether it's water, whether it's something, whatever works for you. You don't need a whole lot of calories for a sprint or anything, or even for an Olympic, but you definitely don't want to be out there running if it's 90 degrees in Falmouth. There's no shade in that race. Like, you want to be drinking water, even if you're doing a 5K. You don't want to be doing that dehydrated. So, I would say at the very least, make sure you're drinking.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, a lot of the races get really hot. Make sure you have at least one bottle of water on your bike for a sprint. And if you're doing something longer, try to have 2 bottles. And then along with that, just for like types of nutrition, if people like haven't used much before, a lot of people do like goos, or gels, all different brands of those. There's like some gummy ones too, like Cliff Blocks. And then like liquid hydration too, different types of like sports drinks. So kind of try out different options and see what you like and what works for your body. But there's a lot of different things out there. So you can definitely find something that you can enjoy at least somewhat and works for your body.
Great. Excellent. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. So the just a couple more questions left, and then those that are listening tonight will have a chance to ask questions as well. Training needs. So sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't have time to do a triathlon. It takes so much training, but it all depends on the distance. So, so if you guys wanted to, choose somebody to talk first, how much what's the least you could feel like you can get away with and still have a good race? You might not podium, but you still have a fun time versus how many hours you put in, where it's like, don't, like you're putting in way too much, way too many hours. You could spend that time doing something else. So who wants to talk about that?
Michelle, we'll work our way up from shortest tenure to longest tenure. I'll do that.
Sounds good. Yeah, definitely depends what distance you're doing. If you're starting out with a sprint, especially if you're like just starting out brand new to the sport, like start with doing each sport at least once a week, and kind of build up the distance, to at least as far as you're, planning on going for each of those distances. Make sure you can do each individual one, that far. And then if you're able to do that, and can do like, each sport twice a week, that's great. You're not always going to have time to do that, but if you do have time, I think if you can do each sport twice a week, that will kind of make you feel a lot more confident about your race, and it'll go a lot, better. Don't feel like you need to be like going for like a 10-mile run if you're only training for a sprint. Like if you can run 3 miles, if you want to try running 4 miles, like you'll be just fine. Another thing I think that is good to at least practice a couple times is doing a little bit of running right after a bike ride to see what your legs feel like. So go for a bike ride, and then I like to just honestly do 10 minutes of running after it. In the first 10 minutes, you can get a good feel of what your legs are going to feel like. Never done that before. Your legs feel kind of like jelly the first time. So it's nice to know what that's going to feel like, before the race rather than finding out during the race.
Yeah, I think that pretty much you covered what I was going to say. The only thing I would add is people are generally new beginners that were not swimmers are most nervous about the swim. So I would just make sure you can cover the distance of the swim without stopping. Even if you do it in a pool, try to do it just, pushing off walls or whatever without stopping, just so you feel comfortable. And then if you can get into open water before the race, do that. If not, I would just say get yourself comfortable, because on the bike, you can always stop pedaling. On the run, you can walk. The swim's a little bit harder to not swim. So just get comfortable with the distance. And then, just exactly what you said, like if you're doing a 5K, you don't really need to go above like 4 or 5 miles, like total, like for your longest, and just, work up to like I feel like you can cover all those distances beforehand. I don't even think before my first triathlon, I did all of them together. I was like, okay, this is going to be the day where I do all of the 3 of them together. So, I think you'll be fine if you get into good shape and you can cover each one of the distances separately. And then it's really good to know what your legs are going to feel like when you get off your bike too.
Yeah, that's a different feeling, because actually you'll probably be in good shape, better than you think. You just will feel weird for a quarter to half mile. You'll be like, oh, I did something wrong. You're like, all of us know. Some of us been doing it longer, just know. And the first half mile is just going to feel weird. Like it just is. The only things I'd add is there's so much information out there right now. Like there's info overload on training. Is figure out what you want to be when you go to your first race. Like if your jam is you just want to finish, build a plan and then work it into your week. Don't get caught up with all the information out there about what you have to do or what you have to buy or what you're going to do. Your first one, actually, I tell everyone's your easiest one. Like it's a W when you finish. Like that's it. You can only get better from there. So just figure that out and then back out. And then just like Michelle said, like just work yourself up. If you've got a strong point, you can let up on that a little bit and then work. And then definitely for your first one, I'm an adult onset swimmer. So I would agree with Jen. For me, it's still, can I get out of the water and be ready to ride? And so that's the piece. The rest of it, you can figure out on the fly. Feeling really comfortable in the water for your first one is really, really important as you get going.
Right, right. I thank you. Thank you guys. All right. So this is our last question for the panel that I have prepared. And the rest is going to be up to those of you that are on tonight. So so start thinking about your questions while you're still listening to these great tips. So my question for you is, if you could pick 2 tips to tell a first timer before their first race. Don't remember any, if you remember nothing else, remember these 2 things. So, and I know you guys have been giving lots of great tips. Now you have to come up with 2 more. So, Jen, let's start with you. Go ahead.
All right, my first number 1 tip is, whether it's your first or your millionth triathlon, but especially your first, have fun out there. Like, even if some things start going wrong, you might be hurting a little bit, whatever goes on, like, there are going to be people there cheering for you, and it's a really fun environment, and it's something that we all get to do because we love it. So just make sure, smile and have fun. And it's going to be a great day. So that's my one tip. And then my other tip is, try not to worry too much about the things that you can't control. Like, you train for this race and then you get to like Hyannis and it's raining. You're going to be fine. Like, you might take it easier on the bike or be a little bit more careful, but you can't control the weather. But you control how you react to the things that happen that day. And so that's, just make sure you don't, you control what you can control, not what you can't. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say my tips, I was definitely going to say have fun for one of mine, but I'll try to give 2 different ones. I'd say I see a lot of people starting out that are really nervous about the swim and open water and stuff. So I think my biggest tip is just to stay calm. Know that there's always going to be like people in kayaks out there for support. You can hold on to them if you need to, but just try not to like get overworked or too stressed about the swim. Like, if you practice, like, you're going to be just fine. You'll make it. And then other than that, another tip I have, it's always a good idea to make a list of all of the different things that you're going to pack for your race and will need for your race, just so you don't forget anything. It sucks to show up to the race and realize you forgot something really important. So if you make a list and make sure you packed everything, you can set yourself up for a good race.
Sucks going last. So I'll get kind of 2.5. So I'm just gonna the fun thing for sure. Like, I just tell people, you can go to work and be miserable. This is just getting outside and playing for a day. So that's what you're there for. The journey's the fun. Just literally have fun. Like, just smile. If you have to stop for a second, smile. It's all good. And the cool thing with sprints, probably more so than long races, is if this one doesn't go great, you finish and you just go sign up for another one. They got like 5 of them. So, even this ones, you just go do another one, right? And you take what you learn. The packing piece. So that was the one tip I did have. The real one is, I actually kind of, hopefully no one sees me doing it, but basically go through the race with all my gear and put it in the bag. So basically, I might not put the wetsuit on, but I get my wetsuit out. I'm going to bring, a swim cap because, just in case. Goggles. Sometimes I bring extra goggles, which I've lost my original goggles or given other people my goggles. And then just all my bike stuff, put it on, and I put it right in the bag. Because I think all of us can know, just knowing you have all your stuff is like a win. If you can pack an extra thing on a bag and put it on the side, that's great. Like extra race singlet. I always pack extra socks because I don't know how I've lost socks when I'm setting up transition area, but somehow I've magically lost socks. Which leads me to the last thing. Things will go wrong. And literally, I think just because Jen and I have been around for a long time, if you asked us and sat around over a beer and talk about all the things, 3/4 of our stories about things that went wrong. Crap weather, flats, no water, nothing at the aid station. It like literally happens, and it's how stories are made. And so just enjoy it. Just stay stoked in the moment.
Excellent. All right. Thank you guys. I have like, as Sean, as you were talking, it was reminding me of like some of the like most embarrassing moments that I've had in my triathlon career. And I thought, oh, that would be a good one for you guys, which I might still ask. So, and the reason to do that is obviously not to embarrass our panel, but it's for those of you that are watching to understand that it's fine. Like overall, it's, don't take yourself too seriously. You will see plenty of people that are doing just that. But the idea is like sometimes stuff happens, right? So, so are you guys willing to do that? Do you have like one embarrassing moment that you're like,
I have many.
Well, I know it's more of a selection issue.
I have definitely thrown up on the Hyannis finish line, multiple times. So, I definitely like once I get to the end, I try to go faster, and I am the queen of throwing up on the finish line. So, yeah, it happens.
okay,
I don't know if you guys do what I would not recommend your first time is the infamous flying dismount, where you kind of lean over the side. And I come from cycling, so I say this: you can practice and practice and be comfortable and be very comfortable. And not thinking it through at a race once they had kind of a grassy transition area. So I stepped off with everything moving at 10 miles an hour, and I also continued to go 10 miles an hour with the bike as we went. So that was awesome. And the best part of it all was one of the races I brought the kids. And so, this will never be lost ever in the annals of family history.
Oh, that's great. For me, I remember my very first race ever. I like lost track of my timing chip and I didn't even realize it because I didn't even really know what it was. But all of a sudden, I'm like, my name's called on the loudspeaker, or my number probably, because I think the timing chips had numbers on, and I was like, ooh, that's mine. And I had to go to wherever they were and grab it. And then later on, I'm still getting ready for transition, realize I lost it again. And later they called my number again over the loudspeaker, and I had to go get my timing chip. And the good thing is that's never happened to me again. Now I make sure to put the timing chip on right away.
those are good ones. Thank you guys. All right. We've had a few things in chat, some things we've kind of answered, but I'm actually going to change the view here. And anyone who wants to, we have a good sized group, but it's not gigantic. And so I think it's enough that people can kind of just ask questions so we can all kind of be face to face. So if you want to take yourself off of
There's some for you though in there actually. So this is good. Good start. They're for you. Can you, if you haven't seen the sat check, talk about the gut check triathlon. And when you're done with that, what is the typical water temp for the first Hyannis triathlon?
Oh, I love that. Okay. So I love to talk. So thank you guys for asking me a question. So yeah, and some of you have been to any of our races, you know this. So the gut check, it's an adventure triathlon. It was the gut check itself that was a triathlon or duathlon was started in 2014 in Nickerson State Park. And after a number of years of that and that being fun, Andy's my husband and fellow race director, right on our screen. He said, let's mix this up a little bit. So we did. So you get a map only moments before the race. So unlike every other triathlon where you know the course and you might even have it memorized and hopefully you've at least driven it before the race. With gut check, you have no idea what it is. You just know it's in the state park in Brewster. Few minutes before the race, I give you and your teammates, if you have teammates, the map, which is laminated because you're going to have it all over, and it has checkpoints, and you just have to get from one checkpoint to the next, and we'll tell you on the map whether that's a checkpoint that you need to bike to, run to, swim to, or paddleboard to, and you just keep going until you get home. I mean, not home, till you get to the finish line. So it is a super fun race. And Pam, thank you for asking these questions. Typical water temp for first Hyannis. Andy, you're usually taking the temperature for Hyannis 1.
I was just looking at the athlete's guide from last year to see if we updated it at the last minute. I'm not seeing it, but I believe the range has always been 68 to 70, 71. So at least for seasoned triathletes, that's not chilly. It might be chilly if you're not used to swimming outside. You've been swimming in an 80-degree pool or something. But we're fortunate in that the Hyannis race is on the south side of the Cape, in a spot where the water is about as warm as you can find on Cape Cod. And it's also sheltered as well. So we've enjoyed pleasant temperatures there.
Thanks.
While we got you, so water temp in August or September?
We don't have a race in August, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
September, Andy, Hyannis 2.
Low 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hyannis 2 is low 70s, but we also do 2 other races, which are ponds. Do you remember those? I might have a note about those. So
Wellfleet is also in that 69, 70 range.
right,
And
that's in June
swim
this year.
run, yeah,
That's in June.
in June. Swim run, which is in September. September is very funny on the Cape in that it's really our August. So the temperature at swim run is going to be in the low 70s.
Okay, excellent.
All I heard was wetsuit legal, wetsuit legal, wetsuit legal. That's literally how I translated that.
That's it.
Yeah, our race in Maine, sometimes we have trouble making that work, but I'll go out there at 3 a.m. on a paddleboard and dive as deep as I can with the thermometer to try to get that temp for you folks.
Yeah, since everyone likes to wear wetsuits, and that's a long race for sure.
Yeah.
So thanks for the question. Carol asked, sorry, Carol, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. Yeah, no races in August for us at least. There was another question I wanted to ask. Oh, Pam asked again as her follow-up for the gut check. You can totally race without a team for gut check. You can do 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 4 people. If you're racing individually, we've got a bunch of people that do that as well. Usually somewhere along the course, though, you're going to be like, hey, you're kind of going my pace. Where's that next stop? Because we don't give you the map. We just give you the spot on the map. We just give you the spot where it is. We don't tell you how to get there. So usually you end up finding other people that you're, that you're racing along, and you end up having a great time. All right, so let's see. Someone asked about mountain bikes. Mountain bikes are totally fine.
My first time, I did my first Falmouth on a mountain bike.
There. Oh, that's a good race to do the mountain bike on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's flat, so the only, like, if you have a couple bucks, get some, instead of knobby tires, just get slicks. Because they make them. So you just replace the tires, keep the wheels, everything else, jam on.
Yeah, we've seen, particularly at Falmouth, some people will be on their bikes like those 40-pound steel bikes, that have been sitting at their mother's house forever, and there's a basket in the front. Totally fine. That's what you like to, if that's what you want to ride, it's your first race, you don't have to worry about being fast. So anything goes. Okay, so do we have any other, let's see, any other questions? Wow, you guys are an easy group. I think part of it's probably you don't know what questions to ask. Sometimes we end up with that. So at some basic stuff that I can tell you, at least for new athletes at New England endurance events races. First, I said we're all sanctioned races, which means we're following USAT guidelines for safety and for everything else. We go beyond that when it comes to swimming. We always have a ratio of 1 certified lifeguard for every 25 athletes that are in the water at that time. USAT regulations are 1 in 35. So we always beat that because we want to make sure you guys are safe. If you go to start your race and or you go to pick up your packet and you're like, that swim looks terrifying, which for some people it does. It doesn't have to, but sometimes you're nervous. You can get a red swim cap. So when you go to pick up your packet, if you just ask for a red swim cap, it's our safety cap. That means I need some extra eyes on me. Doesn't mean that you're not a good swimmer or anything else. It just means I want all eyes on me when I'm in that water. And that might be for a medical condition as well. So if you have some kind of medical condition, sometimes pregnancy, we have had some pregnant women race with us, and I'm like, please put a red swim cap on, just so that way we've got some extra eyes on you. So so all different reasons you might want a red cap, but we do offer that. Okay, is there anything else that our panel has, or any other questions? Anyone wants to jump in with something else? I think that we've hit everything in the chat. Is there a question that someone has had? We've had some great comments in the chat as well. If anyone has any other questions in the chat that we haven't answered, that I might have skipped over accidentally, feel free to jump in.
I have a quick question. This is very specific. So I wear glasses and I can't wear contacts. And I'm just trying to visualize a transition from my goggles to wherever I put my glasses, because I'm blind as a bat. And like, do other people do this? Because I'm trying to figure out, how do I find my bike when I can't see? So if anybody has any answers to that, that would be very helpful.
Do you have, your goggles aren't prescription goggles by any chance?
So I'm going to invest in those. So my only thought is that to wear those all the way to my bike.
We have, I can quickly think of two of our athletes with that same issue. Actually, one is now our run course supervisor, but he's raced hiatus many a time in his day. And they just have to have the glasses on. So they've had good luck with the prescription goggles. Then they wear prescription sunglasses, so it's a relatively quick transfer. And you can keep the goggles on perhaps for a little while as you're running up the beach. I mean, it's just the beach. There shouldn't be anything in the way. But that would be my suggestion. And you'll see plenty of people running on the run course, especially at Hyannis and Falmouth, with glasses on.
Great. My biggest concern is going from swim to the bike to put my glasses back on.
I have
Yeah,
a sort of a follow-up question, if that's okay. This was many years ago now, and so I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but my recollection when my parents did this race years ago is that there was like a little table at the swim exit where I'm pretty sure my parents put their glasses and like got them on to run to transition. Maybe I'm not remembering that right.
No, we don't have a table there. If Michelle, I'm sorry, who was it that was asking the question to start with?
Maureen,
I'm sorry, what?
Maureen.
Sorry about that, Maureen. If you want to write me separately at Kathleen@neevents.com, we're, always willing to be able to make accommodations as we can.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Okay, and Jen, it looks like you might have had.
I was just wondering, I don't even know if this is okay in terms of like USAT rules or anything. I mean, I have been at races with glasses tables too, but like if there isn't, Maureen, I don't know, are you having people, could she have someone hand her glasses? Like if someone came to spectate with her, like when she gets out if she can't run in her goggles, I'm
Right.
saying.
Technically, no. Yeah.
No?
Technically, that would be somebody interfering with her race, even though it's in a good way.
I just didn't know if running with your goggles like works or not. Like, I just don't know.
I don't know either.
But-
The
yeah.
a volunteer could hand you something. But write me separately and let's see what we can work
Sure.
out for you.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll have to definitely try running in
Yeah.
prescription goggles once I get them. I'll let you know.
Right. Yeah, we don't want you tripping. That would be bad.
Right.
All right. So Carol asked about accessories for swimming, floats, paddles, that sort of thing. So here's something different, New England Endurance Events, USAT, and that's USA Triathlon, they're a sanctioning body. says no flotation devices. We totally agree with that. A swim, as some of us who use safe swimmer buoys in our open water swims know, it's not a flotation device when you're swimming. It's floating around behind you. So we allow that only in the last wave, so that way you're not going to clothesline somebody. So if you wanted to wear, if you feel very unsafe and in the water, when you're swimming, you're like, no, I know I can do the distance. It just scares me to death. And you want to have a safe swimmer buoy, that's fine. Just go in that last wave. You'll be fine. No paddles. Paddles are only for swim run. And swim run, it's almost anything goes. So no paddles, no fins. USAT has now said that snorkels, like the snorkel that goes up the front, are now illegal unless you have a doctor's note that you give to the race management beforehand. That used to be something that you actually could do, even though people didn't realize it. So I hope that helps. Great. All right. Anyone have any other questions? I like this. No, none. Okay. So appreciate you guys all being here tonight. I hope that we've answered. Oh, wait, now 2 popped in. That's nope, just people saying I gotta go. So thank you guys so much for being on. Thank you for our panel, Jen, Michelle, and Sean from the Boston Triathlon Team. We really appreciate you guys being here and helping those that are new kind of understand the sport a little bit. For anybody else that's on, if you are doing either one of the Highnesses or Falmouth for you, or a gut check for that matter, for your first race, we always do an athletes meeting the week before. And this will be, and you'll have an opportunity to ask more questions then, but that's only a week before the race. So it'd be better to take in all of that you've learned tonight. This will also be on YouTube on our New England Endurance Event channel, which is NE_endurance, YouTube for YouTube channel. And we'll have this on again. If you said, oh, that's Sean, he gave some great advice. What was it? You'll be able to find it there. So thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful night and happy, fun, and safe race season. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.